There is a constant tussle between good and bad both within and without any individual, and it's imperative that we remember good will always prevail. This theme is strongly evident in the overall message and the struggles of the main characters and their struggle with the forces of good and evil. This theme is the core of human morality and the constant tug-of-war between both sides of the coin. The main character, Atticus, a lawyer, is faced squarely with humans' propensity for evil when he represents an innocent man in a rape charge. Humanity struggles with good and evil daily. This struggle is the core of our existence. To his surprise, after appealing to the good in the hearts of the jury and the court, the guilty verdict was passed anyway. Prior to this, he believed all people had the potential for good and that this ideal will always prevail regardless of how much bad threatens to overcome them. He taught this ideal to his children, Scout and Jem, who grew up to also think like their father. This was up until they were made to witness the wrong verdict passed on the innocent man charged with rape and battery of a white woman. They too expected good to prevail and the right verdict to be passed, but their faith in the capacity for good in all people was crushed. Sometimes good will not prevail, but you must not lose hope yet. Their town was smack in the middle of the Depression era and was in the famed racist South region of the United States. This influenced the verdict greatly as the defendant, Tom Robinson, was a black man. This realization that so many people preferred to kill an innocent man because of the color of his skin shook them to their cores. This event almost shifted their minds to entertain evil, but their struggle ends when they are faced with the great evil in the form of Bob Eel, who tries to kill them, and they are saved by an ultimate good in the form of Boo Radley. The ideals they were raised on hold that good and evil are in a constant struggle, but good will always prevail eventually, and that they should always hold out hope that it will. In today's world, we are also faced with this struggle, and it seems like bad has the upper hand, but like in the book, if you are patient, good will prevail. To nip the tendency to be bereft of morals in any individual, make sure they're properly educated. The struggle for good and evil is often helped along by certain factors, and chief among them is education. What an individual is taught to believe is true will go a long way to affect how they think and behave in their lives moving forward. It informs their perspective of the world and guides their mind to affect their behaviors. A good education is a gift and a literal enlightenment, but a bad one is a deadly weapon of ignorance. Ignorance is a very deadly hamper and can be used for the furtherance of evil. In the book, the eldest child, Scout, is ahead of her classmates in school because she had been homeschooled by her father. Her teacher is clearly angered by this and forbids her from learning anything from home altogether. This action shows clearly that even though the things Scout was taught were correct, the world preferred that your knowledge was institutionalized and not education that encouraged free thought. Institutionalized education is bereft of any kind of morality. It doesn't foster the goodness in the individuals, nor put at bay the evilness either. Atticus offered his children a different, healthier version and approach. He truthfully answered whatever questions they had and encouraged them to not shy away from being inquisitive and asking questions. He treated them as adults so they can grow intellectually and morally, knowing the difference between right and wrong and knowing why they should always do the right thing. But this would sound like a disorganized system to those who operated institutionalized education because they believe there should be limits and certain topics should not be discussed altogether. It also conflicts the moral standpoint of whoever is delivering said education, as is seen when Scout's very racist teacher, Miss Gates, says something as horrible as the Holocaust could never happen in the US, but she believed firmly that the blacks in America deserved to be taught a lesson. Institutionalized education does more harm than good and fails to raise morally sound individuals in society. A home education doesn't guarantee this also because it depends on the quality and intention behind it. An evil parent cannot instill virtues or good morals, but can only give what they have. But in an ideal situation, as in the case of Atticus, a morally sound home education trumps institutionalized education in every aspect. An education bereft of morality is wasted and lacking in much-needed knowledge. Social inequality continues to be a great problem amidst people, oftentimes earning them the wrong treatment by virtue of their social class. The great gap between individuals is yet another tool that is often exploited by evil and its agents. Throughout the book, a social stratum is obvious and adhered to. There are folks who fall higher up in the classification and those who fall much lower. As is common with humans, we tend to judge people based on their societal standings and not by their value as humans. Today's world categorizes people by virtue of their social class instead of their value to society. This is evident in many occasions in the book, especially Scout being refused from befriending Walter Cunningham, whose family was considered to be too low down on the social ladder. This classification disfavors the Black community even worse because they are considered lower than the lowest white family in the town, and as such, associating with them will definitely be prohibited. Scout struggles to see why a person should be judged by the family they come from or their place in society, and believes a person should be judged based on one content only, morality. Her father thinks so too and was able to raise his kids in that light. He too didn't believe a person was defined by his surname or history, but by their own present moral value to society.
Items with small damage,
Today's world
a tear,
also
a loose
exists
button,
in this
should go
subtle
into
yet
a repair
glaring
pile
social
before
structure.
anything else.
This
A tiny
disparity, often
investment
the
of time
yardstick
or
by
money
which
could make
people
them
are
perfectly
ultimately
wearable
treated,
again,
meaning
whether
that
for
no
you
one
or
is
for
treated
someone
the
else.
same by virtue
And
of their
finally,
families
for
or
anything
name.
that truly
The
cannot be
book
worn
helps
or
show that
repaired,
each
look for
person should be
textile
treated
recycling.
equally,
Many
regardless of
councils
where
and
they are
clothing
from
brands
or the
now
color of
offer
their skin.
recycling programs
This
that
isn't
turn old
debatable,
fabrics
and it
into
rings
new
true
materials,
throughout the
keeping them
scenes.
out of
We
landfill
should adopt this
entirely.
mindset
Taking
also
those
and do
extra few
away with the
minutes to
bias
sort your
society
unwanted
has laid
clothes
out for us to
thoughtfully is a
follow.
small act,
We are to
but small
respect
acts
each
done
individual the way
consistently have a
we would
way of
like to be
adding up to
respected,
something
giving them
meaningful.
equal treatment and
The
not
art of
doing so
buying less
solely
and
based on their
enjoying it more.
position, rank, or
Once your
origin.
closet has been cleared and your
Good in our
unwanted
own
items have
hearts
found
should be
their proper
preserved and
destinations,
nurtured at
you are
all
left with
costs.
something rare
The
and
book's
genuinely
title is
valuable,
also a
a
theme that
wardrobe full
resounds
of
throughout the
things you
book.
actually
The
love.
characters
The
first
challenge
encounter the
now is
Mockingbird
keeping it
theme
that way.
when Atticus buys
Elizabeth
air
Cline
guns for
introduces
Scout
the
and
idea
Jem
of a
and gives
capsule
them
wardrobe.
strict
The
rules on
concept
just
is
what they were
beautifully
allowed to
simple.
shoot with them,
Instead of
with the
owning a vast
Mockingbird
number
being
of
out of
clothes,
bounds
you
for
own a
them.
carefully
When
chosen
he is
collection
asked
of
why,
pieces that
Atticus
all
says
work
the
together.
Mockingbird doesn't
Everything
cause
can be
any
mixed and
harm.
matched.
They aren't
Every
pests
item
in any
earns
way.
its place.
He
And
proceeds to
because
say
each
it
piece
is a sin
belongs,
to kill
getting
them
dressed
because they
becomes a
truly
pleasure
constitute
rather than a
no
daily
harm in
source
any
of
way
frustration.
whatsoever.
But building a
Although he
capsule
says
wardrobe
this, he
requires a
really is
shift in
speaking
how
about
we
the
shop,
truest
and
form
that
of
shift
good in all
begins with one
mankind.
deceptively
He
simple
uses the
challenge: a
mockingbird to
shopping
signify a
fast.
good
A
person,
shopping
or at
fast
the
means
least the
setting a period of
manifestation
time
of
during
good.
which you commit to
Adding
buying
that to
no
kill
new
a good
clothes.
person,
This might
someone
be
who had
30
done no
days, it
harm
might
to
be
you
60.
or anyone
The
else,
length
is
matters
in
less
fact
than the
a great
commitment.
sin.
Elizabeth
It is a
suggests
great
finding a
sin
friend
to
to do it
stifle
with
the
so that
good
you
that
can keep each
resides in
other
your heart.
accountable. When the
An
temptation
example
to
of a
browse a
mockingbird in
sale
the
or
book
wander
is Tom
into a favorite
Robinson,
shop
the
becomes
innocent
too
black
strong,
man
having
accused of
someone
raping and
beside you,
beating a
ready
white
to steer
woman,
you toward a
Maella
coffee
Eel.
instead,
He is
makes all the
innocent of these
difference.
charges, but
The
is
shopping
convicted
fast will
anyway
feel
and
difficult
killed.
at first,
This, in
particularly
effect,
if
means the
browsing shops
townspeople
has become
committed
a
the
habit
great
or a
sin
form
of
of
killing a
relaxation.
mockingbird.
But it also
Every
opens your
day,
eyes to how
society
much you
kills the
already
content
have.
of good
You
in
will
us,
rediscover forgotten
systematically
pieces.
pushing
You
us
will find
towards
new
evil.
ways to combine what you
Seek
own.
to
And when
always
the fast
preserve
ends,
good in
you
all
will
its
return to
forms,
shopping with
never
far
letting it
greater
become
clarity
forgotten
about what
or
you
erased.
actually need.
If good existed in the
Research by
form of a
Wrap
person,
UK,
then you
cited by
must
Elizabeth
protect them
Cline,
from any
found
such
that simply
unlawful
wearing a garment
judgment
for
or
9
unfair
months longer than
persecution.
you otherwise would
Good and
reduces
good
its
people,
carbon,
like the
water, and
mockingbird,
waste
should be
footprint by
held
up to
in high
30%.
regard,
That is a
protected at
remarkable
all
figure for
costs.
such a modest
This same
change in
goes for the
behavior,
good in our
and it's a
hearts
reminder
also.
that
It should
conscious
not be left
consumption is not about
unprotected and easily
sacrifice, it's
influenced by the
about
surrounding
intention.
evil we are facing every
Choosing
day.
brands that are trying to do better. When you do return to shopping, the question of where you buy becomes just as important as what you buy. Some brands are genuinely working to reduce the harm their industry causes. They're investing in sustainable materials, paying fair wages, and rethinking their production methods from the ground up. Others use the language of sustainability as a marketing strategy, with little substance behind it. Learning to tell the difference is a skill worth developing. Elizabeth Cline's advice is to start with research. The Good On You app is an excellent starting point. It rates fashion brands on their environmental and ethical practices, giving you an at-a-glance sense of where your money is going. Sustainable fashion bloggers and online communities are also rich sources of recommendations and honest reviews. When shopping in person, train yourself to evaluate a garment before you look at its price. Check the seams, test the zip, inspect the stitching. Quality reveals itself to those who know what to look for. A well-made piece that costs more upfront and lasts for years is almost always a wiser investment than a cheap piece that falls apart within months. And be cautious of the pull of discounts. Sales and special offers are carefully designed to create a sense of urgency, a feeling that if you do not act now, you will miss out. But the best way to avoid a purchase you will later regret is to decide whether you truly want something before you ever look at the price tag. No brand is perfect. Elizabeth Cline is clear on this. Even the most conscientious companies have room to improve, but the brands that are genuinely trying deserve your support, and those that are not deserve your feedback. If a brand you love appears to be falling short on sustainability or ethics, contact them. Let them know. Consumer voices matter more than most people realize. A closing thought. The fashion industry is vast, profitable, and built on habits that many of us have held for years without questioning them. Changing those habits won't happen overnight, but it doesn't need to. It starts with one honest afternoon spent going through your closet. It continues with a more thoughtful approach to where your unwanted clothes end up. It deepens with a shopping fast that reveals just how much you already have. And it grows through small, consistent choices, choosing quality over quantity, researching the brands you support, and wearing what you own for longer. Elizabeth Cline is not asking anyone to give up on fashion. She's asking us to fall in love with it differently, to see our clothes not as disposable pleasures, but as lasting investments in our own style and in a world we all share. Your closet is a small thing, but the choices you make inside it ripple outward in ways that are larger than they first appear. And that's worth thinking about the next time you reach for something new.